teacher said that, so yeah, it's like.
She go in the class and like, yes, like.
Without further ado, we will call this meeting to order. Can I get a motion to start the meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Jenny, thank you. Joanna?
Sure.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. The meeting is now called to order. Request to add items to the agenda? Okay. Any changes or requests to add anything to the agenda? Nope. All right, if no, then we will proceed. So we'll start with the secretary's report and approval.
Okay, the minutes were included in the email that was sent to all PTA members. Were there any questions or issues regarding them? If not, can I have a motion, please, for the hiring? I don't think. And then second?
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Okay, so treasurer's report. So Karen is our incoming treasurer for 24-25. She's
Hello.
going to sit in for Chaston, the 23-24 treasurer.
Yeah, not much to report. We'll be submitting a reimbursement for the school t-shirts to Tonka Pride accounts, and with the results of the booster-thon, the executive board will potentially add some more grants, funding for grants. And yeah, okay, we'll vote on it in our next meeting. And yeah, I've met with Jenny's a couple days ago to go over the membership toolkit. Pretty
Easy,
straightforward.
right?
Yeah,
Easy.
it's great.
Well, great, slowly but surely.
That's all I've got.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. All right, so president's report. So we have couple items just to kind of say first. If you look at the important dates for the year, there is the parent party is grayed out. If you can't see that it's the parent party, it's because it's grayed out. We're not canceling that. We are just not going to hold it this year. There's kind of some overlap with the volunteer appreciation party that we have right after that with the Dream Makers. It's right before it, and so nobody's like super excited to like host it this year and stuff. So we'll keep it as a line item in the budget. It'll be on the schedule for next year. And any parents that are wanting to take the party can do that. So just FYI. And then we are also bringing something back that was gone for a while, movie licenses. So teachers will play movies in their classrooms. A lot of the Chinese teachers, we know that they do like the YouTube and things like that, but there's actually ability for teachers to play like actual movies. And so the PTA buys a movie license. So it's a small budget item that we used to have. We got rid of it during the pandemic, and it's come back now. So some teachers have already had movie parties and things. So that's kind of fun. So exciting. Committee positions. So we've been reaching out for open committee positions, and we're all filled. So that is really great. So Joanna is here. Joanna Harper. She took our staff appreciation and has done an amazing job. So that is really great. Thank you, Joanna. And the Tonka Pride, Jessica Davis took it. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And then Spring Fling, Val Quinn and Jessica Davis. Thank you, ladies. Tonka Serves, Marie Rayleigh. She's not here tonight, but Marie Rayleigh is also our gardener that does the Media Center and Peace Guardian. And then the book fair, Julie Kazmierkowski and Grace Lee. So that is really exciting. We do still have, I think there's a little bit of interest, but nobody's committed yet to the board position, so the executive board next year. We have a treasurer, but the president, so my role, the deputy president or volunteer coordinator, communications coordinator, potential MTP role, and secretary will all come due. So we'll want to vote for that either this next meeting in January or at least by April.
We'll vote in.
For the incoming, we will hope have people to vote for it, is the goal. by then. So if you're not interested, great. If you know anybody that is interested, let us know. And then we're going to have some committee openings as well. So the fall fundraiser is a big one, and we'll learn a little bit more about that in general. But somebody take it now because Jenny is going to be at the middle school and high school. Volunteer-a-palooza are some committees that are going to be really crucial right at the start of next year that we're looking for people to fill. So,
I'm going to send out a heartfelt email reminding people that one person has been doing all of these things for the last 4 years. So if one person signs up for each of them, they are not difficult to do at all. And I'm talking to the crowd who's already signed up for things, so you guys I'm not so worried about.
You're on the hook.
But it really is, it's one of those things where it's like, I know it can be daunting, like the whole sprinkling, you're like, wait a minute, what am I getting myself into? But Val can attest to the fact that if you get enough volunteers, you can actually get something done in a reasonable amount of time. So.
And you should call on that if they do the booster, they get to pick swag.
Exactly, that's the biggest thing.
Free
You guys get
swag.
to design swag and you get to have a little bit of your own. There are perks to volunteering, I'll just say that.
There you go. Absolutely. Okay, well, we're gonna have kind of an abbreviated meeting today, so we have extra time for our guest speakers to speak as well. Joe wasn't able to make it tonight, and Nicole Sneddon is actually at a conference, so we won't have the principal's report, unfortunately. But we have our guest speakers here, Minnetonka Instructional Technology, Amanda Fay and Sarah Hunt. So Amanda is the teacher coach and director Amanda Fay, and the teacher instructional coach, Sarah Hunt. So basically learn how Minnetonka safely uses instructional technology in our elementary schools and tips for matching at home. And then also, I think it'll be really helpful for my family, like if we're not following the school plan, maybe just a tip or, more, what are some things that we can do. So we're really glad that they're here to speak to us, especially after the pandemic. All these, iPads came home earlier than expected with the littles. So it's kind of a whole new environment. So thank you very much. Come on up here. I'll get out of the way.
Thanks for having us. Oh, geez, my badge was
Already throwing stuff.
I guess I broke it. Someone did tell me it didn't look very. It was doing well. Yeah. It's okay. I think I have another one. Okay, I'm gonna put it in my pocket. The rest I'm gonna forget that.
You leave it here.
So, okay. Well, thank you so much for having us. We both are teachers at heart forever, right? And so I am at the district office now, director of instructional technology. Was an English teacher, forever an English teacher is what I like to say. I served as a teacher instructional technology coach like Sarah. And so Sarah is huge and pivotal. I don't know, sometimes the title can be sort of confusing about what her job is and what she does, but really Sarah is at this elementary school at MMW, and then she also helps a little bit with Tonka Online. And what she does is she really meets with our teachers and our teacher PLC teams and helps them be really intentional about how they're integrating technology into their lessons, helping teachers be more productive with their time, really helping them think differently about once Google came on the market, now AI, changing, how do we find out what students know and don't know? What is important for students to know and not know? So what are some ways that we can think differently versus asking a multiple choice question or something that could easily be Googled? How can we really have students hands-on engaging with their learning? So Sarah is really a huge integral piece of our teachers and our use of instructional technology here at Scenic. So we're lucky to have her.
I'm also a parent, so I could be sitting over there too. So I have a first grader, Eli, and then I have two older kids that I went to middle school. So they're not here anymore. But, lots of good experience being in this wonderful community. So it's just a wonderful place to be. So the group plan for our time together tonight is to think about how we safely use instructional technology at school, and we'll kind of be building that out for you. How to provide matching guidance at home with those tools if and when they come home. And And then what to do when your child doesn't follow the group plan with instructional technology and kind of tips for that. And I have older kids, so I have more experience on that end, because that's where they tend to try and push those boundaries. So, good experience, right? 6th grader, 8th grader, so here we are.
So these are our instructional technology beliefs for the school district. I have been in Minnetonka for about a year and a half now. Previous to that, I was in Prior Lake. These instructional technology beliefs started forming far before I was part of the district. What?
2018 or 2017.
And so we've really taken that, and at the start of last year when I started in the district too, looked at really revising them and making sure that they were still what we believed, that they were still preparing our students for, you know, their current educational journey and the future world to come. Really at the bottom, we have kind of a summary of all of it, but it says technology is not static, right? We all know that it will continue to evolve. It's changing, you know, literally every second. And so we need to teach our students how to be successful and support them in how to use technology in healthy, safe, ethical, and responsible ways.
Is this on the Minnetonka technology website?
I think so. Let me look though. It's hard to remember what's all exactly on there and not, but if it's not, it should be. So I will look at that.
And as you have questions, we are a small group, so please just go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, sorry. I
We're
didn't
small.
interrupt.
No.
This makes sense. Well, we were meaning to say it.
We meant to say that.
And then we did. And then just thinking about the word screen time, it's always good to just pause and just decode that for a minute. So thinking of entertainment, where you're just purely just taking, sit and get, versus that educational and interactive piece. So when we think about a student going in and doing something on Seesaw, they're interacting. So they're not just sitting there mindlessly just taking it in. So it's not the same as watching PBS Kids for 4 hours straight. Right? That's what my daughter really likes to do. If she can ever get time, she's like, oh, watch a little Arthur. But thinking about what they're doing, and they're engaging their brain and using their thinking to either show what they know, to question what they are practicing, those kinds of things. So just, it's been acknowledged that they're different. They're different in how it affects us as adults and children. And so just keeping that in mind, that a screen is not just a screen, it's not just a screen. They're used all over for a lot of different things, and they have different purpose.
So we did a lot of research at the start of last year, kind of post-COVID, with me being new to the district, with sending home devices with our youngest learners like we've never done before, to really dive into what should technology use look like for our youngest learners and at our youngest grades. And so one of the resources that we found that really stuck with us was the National Association for Education of Young Children, the Fred Rogers Center for Learning, and Children's Media, and then the U.S. Department of Education, the Office of Educational Technology. They both had some really great articles with guidance that we combined into kind of what we believe are the foundational elements of technology use for young learners. And so obviously each one of these is much more in-depth, but even just on a baseline of reading the words, I feel like we can all kind of understand what they mean. So relationships, right? Obviously we know relationships are at the core of everything. And so it's really important that everything comes back to the relationship. So we're having conversations around technology and how we're using it, how we're not using it. It's important that we have an established relationship first. Co-viewing and active engagement. So especially with our youngest learners, we know about the Minnesota screen time law that came out that was specific to kindergarten, but really it's what we believe for all of our learners, right? And so what that law talks about is that active engagement, like Sarah was speaking about in the previous slide, and also co-viewing. So for our youngest learners, it can be really helpful for them to be viewing something with another person, whether it's another child, another adult, because then they're going to engage in the content and have a conversation versus just being in their own little world. And then obviously, right, that active engagement. So like Sarah mentioned, if they're on Seesaw and they are showing what they know, they're moving elements around, they're writing, they're using their voice to speak, right? They're actively engaged versus just passively observing, watching. Social and emotional learning, right? We know that social and emotional learning is so important for all of our students. It is the other whole aspect of they're here for curricular needs, right, and to learn, but they're also here to learn and grow as tiny little humans, right? And so making sure that we're attending to our social emotional needs for our students. Childhood essentials, right? So we know kids need to run, they need to move, they need to be hands-on, right? So keeping the childhood essentials at the core as well. Context, content, and quality, I'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit, but really just about, there's not a one size fits all, and it's all about really what's the content that they're engaging with, what is the context, right? So what's the environment around them, what's happening, why are they engaging with it, and then what's the quality? What is this that they're observing? Who made it? Where did it come from? Is it fact checked, right? All of that and how that feeds into each environment and each individual child and what they might need. Media creation, so we're in our media center right now, and our media specialists serve as really stewards to a lot of this work as well. And so in media, a big focus too is also that creation, right? So not just the consumption of media, but creation of media as well. Family engagement, which is why you're all here, right? So having that that cross between what's happening at school, what's happening at home, making sure families are engaged in school content, engaged in the use of technology, adult habits, right? What we do to our kids. I remember teaching English middle school too, silent reading time, right? Silent reading time, I was always reading too, right? Because if everyone has to read and then I'm gonna go to my computer and check emails, that sends a message, right? It's not important because I'm not doing it. So it is really important that we are always modeling. Teacher preparation, making sure that our teachers have the professional learning they need, they have the support like Sarah to help them be successful with our students. And then media mentors, so kind of feeds with the media creation that they're creating, but also that our media specialists are serving as media mentors to our young learners.
Finish up your thought.
Yeah, so I kind of spoke about this already, but you know, one thing our elementary teachers really wanted was like, what's the time? Is like 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Is there a certain amount of time that's appropriate? And in all of our research, there's really not. It is all about that content, context, and quality. So it's about each individual child and what's right for them, right? We know that for some kids, they maybe, you know, device time is not good for them. We know some kids maybe need to move their bodies a little bit more, right? So every child is unique, and so it's really important that that's taken into consideration when deciding how to use various technologies. And that's why our teachers know our students at their core so well, and they know what students need too, so they take this into consideration.
And then another thing that we did to kind of help with that was kind of build out this home screen that's kind of bumpers, if you want to think of it that way, for the students. So everything is going to be in certain places, which also helps with instruction. So for the teacher perspective, they're able to say, we're going to go to the dock and we're going to tap on the seesaw. How helpful is that in kindergarten? You know, we're going to find where that is and then we can navigate. Or we're going to go to page 2, we're going to swipe over 1, we're going to get to a math app. So just having those locations for the apps, we've weeded down the garden of the apps. Over time, you kind of just like anybody's closet, kind of gather more things. And then over time, they've changed and morphed. And so we did a lot of checking, got rid of some and tried to narrow the focus to the things that are really good. And then having this lock screen, kids aren't messing with some of those things that weren't instructional for them. They weren't helping them with their learning. And so we were able to kind of hone in and focus that.
Yeah, well, and Sarah and the team, they started this before I joined Minnetonka as well, and originally this was for K2, and they loved it so much, and the 3rd grade teachers, like all of the rest of the elementary teachers wanted it, which there's nothing that you can ask for more when you're developing something, you're working on it, and the teachers are saying, yes, please, we want this, we need this, and so we have this now K5, and so now we're thinking about, all right, 6th grade's now going to be the first year where they're going to be able to move their apps around, where they're going to be able to set the lock screen and the home screen. So how do we, and Sarah's at the middle too, which is great. So how do we intentionally plan to prepare our 5th graders transitioning to 6th for the bumpers kind of going down a little bit, right? How do we make sure that they can be successful still?
Well, I don't think we have to worry, because I think they did last year. And they realized they locked down this year, so they'll probably be happy.
One sure sixth grader. I'm sure they'll be very happy.
Grader,
Right.
and he's like, I can't do anything on my iPad.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your
Right?
school learning tool. You're supposed to learn on it.
Yes, and then, well, I wondered how much space their pictures and their videos were taking up on the school server, because I was like, okay, let's cut it out, so, yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of selfies. So many,
Yeah.
so many. And then just to tap into our tools, Seesaw is what we use for E3, and then for all grades, E12 for special ed. And it's a great tool. So hopefully you've had some experience, you've had some messages through Seesaw from your teachers, and been able to like see inside the learning environment, the classroom pictures, the activities that they've done, the tangrams they moved around on the table, those kinds of things. It's just a way to capture that and be able to have a conversation with your child about what they've been learning, that they might not be able to do it in that way at that age, be able to articulate those kinds of things. So you're able to think of things that you couldn't see before.
And then 412, we have Schoology, which is a little different, right? So Seesaw is much more of that parent lens, right? You can have your parent account, you kind of get everything that they do that's sent to them, and then Schoology kind of transitions a little bit. You can still go in and you can see their assignments, you can see all of the content the teacher's posting, but it just kind of changes. It doesn't direct push things to you. It's more of you have to go and kind of look at the Schoology lens. But it is nice because we use that through 12th grade, so then you don't have the transition as you move to middle. You don't have to worry about transitioning learning platforms, and then same with the high school. They use the same learning platform.
I will tell you that not everybody knows this, that you can get push notifications when your child does not turn an assignment in. And I also get a summary every Friday of all 3 of my children's grades. So you can keep an eye on all of that without being intrusive. And the best part is when I get the emails that somebody hasn't turned anything in, I just take a screenshot, send it to them and say, question mark? And somehow it miraculously gets taken care of.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is one thing that I
Yes.
highly
The
recommend people do.
Schoology Digest is very helpful.
Yeah.
In getting a good snapshot of all the things that have been happening. Yeah.
And you
Even
just
like
like
when
that.
a cross country meet is, stuff like that,
Right.
like all the things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. There are. Just to come.
And you do that right under your Schoology account. You have like a settings option, and you can go in there and really kind of run down what you want, what you don't want as a parent. So that's highly recommend taking 2 minutes to go in there and do that. It's definitely worth it.
Good recommendation.
Yeah, and our teachers love when parents are helping out
Correct.
doing stuff like that too,
Yes.
particularly as they get older and kind of think like, oh, nobody will know.
Right.
I'll just give you a snapshot. My 9th grader last year, I continually check his grades, as does my husband. And he repeatedly tried to tell us, none of my other friends, their parents don't even look at their grades. So I don't even know what they're doing. I don't know why you guys are being so bossy about this. And it's like, you talk to every other parent and it's like, yep, I'm looking, yep, I'm looking, yep. Like, I'm like, dude, nice try.
Maybe you just have more overdues. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
I'll talk to you less if you turn it all in.
Exactly.
You know, it's true. I mean,
So yes, other parents do look and it's okay.
yes. And as much as they say it's not true, it's true. Good point, good point. The real lived experience. I feel that. We also have 2 different filters that are on the iPad wherever it goes. So if it is coming home and coming back to school, it does have the filters on there. And that helps us keep things that shouldn't go to kids, not going to kids. You're going to talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
specifics of the light,
So-
why we've added that on.
Relay Smart Agent, we have an all devices light speed. We actually added for our elementary and middle have light speed, and that does a lot of specific filtering within YouTube that a lot of filtering companies don't. They don't even do any YouTube filtering at all. Lightspeed does YouTube filtering, so that's a big reason why we brought it into our environment and continue to use it. It does also provide us a lot of data about kind of student usage and things like that that can be really helpful for us as well. So
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. Do you guys get, like, is there somewhere, that, I don't know how to say this, sorry. If a kid is going somewhere that they shouldn't be going, and they've either figured a workaround or whatever, do you guys have anything that can track that sends a message to someone that can follow up on that?
Yeah, so Lightspeed actually has that as part of it, and the administrators get those. We can kind of set up the words, so they work with, the administrators work with our tech department to kind of set what those keywords and phrases are that they want, and then they get notified if those kind of pop up, so they can intervene and have conversations with those kids.
Does it just do YouTube or does it do the nice generic Google search that will populate all sorts of?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, these are for like all internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So even if they like search a naughty word, like that gets to the administrators?
Depending what they have flagged
Yeah.
for, they essentially they can pick specific words that they want. We know kind of the heavy hitter ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that if they look that up, that gets flagged right away.
Yeah, so this is, another guardrail, again, to make sure that we're focusing on the good learning, and we've got tons of stuff in single sign-on, for kids to be able to search within those search engines that they learn about in media, and those are kind of those best go-tos to do any searching, and they talk about that, Pebble Go and other things like that. They use those resources, and then those are already even protected, but these are additional safety nets.
And then further, even more exciting, YouTube is kind of ever changing every single day. It has different algorithms. We've spent time talking with our teachers about this, the fact that, YouTube makes money based on advertising. So they make it hard to get rid of ads and get rid of, suggested videos and watch this. And so up to this point, there really hasn't been a tool that's existed that would allow us to block YouTube, but still utilize it as a tool when the teachers need it. And Edpuzzle, which is a company that we already had a partnership with, they actually partnered with YouTube. And so now that is possible. So Sarah did a pilot with some teachers here right towards the end of last year. And then we've been presenting at all of our elementary schools, talking with the teachers and getting them into Edpuzzle. After winter break, we are going to block YouTube K-5 on devices. Teachers will still have access. And then any videos that the teachers want students to engage with, they will use Edpuzzle. And the great thing about Edpuzzle is that it's not just a go-between, it's also a great instructional tool. So Edpuzzle has built-in, teachers can voice over, they can put their own videos in, they can add in questions, whether they be multiple choice, short answer. It has some awesome built-in AI tools that teachers can utilize to help them develop questions as well. And then students, they can turn off the ability to skip. So the students have to watch the video in order to get to the question. They can rewatch. So many of our teachers have been utilizing it as a tool where they record themselves, put the video in, embed questions and notes, and then have the students engage with it, because then that allows them to literally duplicate themselves. So instead of doing direct instruction, they might have an Edpuzzle that students are watching and engaging with direct instruction while they're pulling a small group that maybe need a little bit more, or they didn't get the learning from yesterday, and then they can rotate throughout the next group. And so Edpuzzle is a really great tool. We now have it actually K-12 because it's an awesome tool. We're actually utilizing it right now for teachers. If they missed the professional learning for any reason, if they weren't able to come to a professional learning day, we still think it's really important for them to engage in that learning. And so we are actually recording videos, creating Edpuzzles, and then they're working through that to also engage in that content to make sure they don't miss that important learning.
I have some YouTube questions, but I realize they might be more for the K through 8. Is there an opportunity offline for the students who do have access to YouTube, and how to manage that?
Yeah.
Is there maybe offline or?
We'll talk a little bit more at the end.
Okay.
We'll start to
Yeah.
talk more after that too.
I watch YouTube and I hear every day about how I'm terrible. Everyone else has YouTube, so I'm really thankful that.
Everyone else doesn't, lots of other parents do that
I watch YouTube.
too. When it's needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt a little bit of a kerfuffle at one point, and then I fixed it, but.
Yeah, it's hard. It's for sure. It is a challenge. Many of our young learners, if they don't know how to do something or they want to learn something, many of our learners are much more likely to watch a video than read an article. So that balance is really hard, and so that's why we're trying this, right? We've engaged in this partnership with Edpuzzle, and we are going to move forward with it and see how it goes. Our teachers seem to be really excited about it so far, because really anything that they want students to get to, they can still get to. They just have to kind of take one step preemptively to give that to students. And then, like Sarah said, we do still have a lot of other tools through media that they learn about that they can still engage with that are 100% educationally vetted. So
You can watch Brain Pop all the time.
exactly.
Oh, you want YouTube, you can't use it. Okay, go Brain Pop.
Did you learn about computational
Learn some
thinking?
science,
Yeah.
right? Just coding, fine, right? But yeah, this is a really, the teachers are so happy to have kind of everybody gets to use this tool. They don't have to look for it, they choose different tools throughout the years. And they're excited to just make sure there aren't ads for kids. They don't want that for your kids. So they're happy to do the work to get all the content. Yeah. All right, so tips for home. So I know it seems kind of simple, but making sure that you have that set location that's not like their room, because they might just sneak back in, right? But somewhere where you know that like they're not going to be coming back to sneak back in, right? And saying, now we're going to be done, we have to use our iPad or do our homework until this time, setting just some sort of goal for your family that then we're going to, put our devices to bed and then pretty soon we're going to go to bed, and, and that's okay. And all families do it. So if they're like, nobody else has to do that, be like, oh yes, they told us, lots of people do it, most do. So just finding a good spot and making sure they're charging it is a good, healthy habit to have a charged iPad. You come to school, teachers really appreciate that. And just kind of talking through that as a family. And then, if you want to have something more formal as we get to the older friends, there are little contracts. We have some links to those. You can just kind of talk through some things. I mean, even the scouts have a contract with technology. So having those kind of set protocol to like talk through these things, you might be able to have some conversation that you might not have might not have thought of something, and then down the road when they're a year or two older, and you're like, oh, I wish I would have talked about that. So some of those things are helpful just for having those conversations at home.
Sarah started to mention some of these. They're really great though. Like Common Sense Media has some great resources. They have a family tech planner. I think they have an agreement form too that you can kind of customize and fill out. But really, we've kind of talked about this with Seesaw and Schoology, but it's great, if you have that lens to what they're doing and what their day consists of and what they might have for homework, it's a lot easier to kind of set these boundaries and have conversations around, all right, well, here, you have this one thing for homework. That should take us about 20 minutes. Let's sit down at the table together. I'm gonna, do my last work emails and you can finish your homework, and then let's put our technology away and, play a game as a family or make dinner or whatever it is. Just, being very open and having those conversations, which at elementary I think is a little easier. Once you get to middle and high, like, nothing, I don't know, my day was fine.
That's where the digest is super helpful. So switching to the 8th grader mind, like, how was school? Fine. I'm like, oh, okay. How about those missing assignments? What do you mean missing assignments? What are they? They're this and that, and I go through it, and then, oh, well, I just forgot to turn that in. Okay, how might we, like those constant conversations to teach them those executive function skills that they don't quite have because they're not a grown-up, and then more about what they're doing in school. So then I, get to zoom in and say, oh, periodic table, let's look at that. So lots of ways to kind of coach your kids and then also help them if they're even having struggles. You kind of zoom in and find out more. Common Sense Media also has like reviews on books, movies, like the appropriateness. So like I use that a lot because I have a 7-year-old, but I also have a 14-year-old. And how far should I go in the middle and bring that little one up? So we're always checking.
Yeah.
It's a good spot to go.
Number 3 always gets way more exposure
I
than
know.
number 1.
I know. I'm a 3rd child too, so then I'm like, oh, this is what my brothers were talking about, like I get it now, So thinking about how might we put some limits and adjust those things as they're getting older. For the iPad, you can use Apple Screen Time. For other devices at home, you can use Google if you have Android devices. And then the OpenDNS is just a filter to limit some of that adult content, which depending on your devices. So if you're using computers or Chromebooks, iPads, phones. We often don't think about our phone, but many times people have given their own phone to a child. And so knowing, did you turn on the limit to adult content? Like maybe not, you are a grown up, right? But then think about who we're giving it to and if you want to change something like that. So
What is OpenTNS?
OpenPNS is a content filter that you can use with your
Wi-Fi.
with your Wi-Fi. Yeah, so for your kind of thinking of like your own computer. It is free. It is just like you just have to follow the steps.
Yep, yeah. And it allows you, you can set times, you know, like when your Wi-Fi shuts down and you can set limits. The nice part is if they're mostly engaging with their school iPad, you know, it already has all those filters and limits on it. But if you are, you know, if they are using other devices at home, you can either set those specific restrictions right on that device, or you can set those restrictions at the like Wi-Fi level that will apply to all devices at certain times. So it's kind of just two different ways to think about it depending on, you know, how you engage with technology at home and what technology your child all uses.
Would you find that through the tech department's website, or would you just Google OpenDNS?
That is on the website.
Yep.
I think it's on the digital health and wellness page.
Yeah.
And then screen time stuff, all of these would be there as well. And then I think we'll be sharing this with you.
Yeah, we have a
that'll
link.
have these things in it.
A QR code and a link to these slides. Too, if you want them.
And, you know, there's, as you think about the age of your child, it's going to be, you know, screen time is nice because it's not like permanent. You have those quick controls you can change. And I think that that's important to just continue to have that conversation and then give them a little room, right? So maybe you give them a couple, you know, well, you're saying that every class you're being blocked out of YouTube in class. Well, how about we start with 10 minutes and let's see if that will work to get you through the day. And then let's talk about it because they might have feelings like, didn't get to that Bill Nye movie, you know, or whatever. And so then, okay, so let's think about, you know, because it's all about what they're doing with their time. You can look at the graphs and say, well, gosh, that's weird. You know, you're supposed to have 15 minutes of this, but then I see that you just went and watched a ton of brain pops. Like, were you supposed to do that for class? Well, you know, so it's a lot of conversation about what they're doing, right? And then what you expect. And then, you know, the teachers are doing that in their classrooms. They're monitoring, what are you doing? And when they're off task, they're being brought back and, you know, having those conversations of, this is our learning time. This is what we need to be doing. So it's nice that it can change. So, you know, just with any like, change in curfew or change in those kind of things, you can change it and modify it and kind of build those adjustable parameters, I guess. It's really nice. We use that at our
Yeah, and then we just have resources. We have the family help desk, which you can call or email with technology questions, right? They're always there to help. They help our teachers, they help our families. I put a link to the technology, digital health website, Common Sense Media newsletters, our emails, and then this QR code will bring you to the slides, or this bit.ly link will bring you to the slides too. I think I did MTKASAGPTO is the bit.ly. So yeah, so feel free to grab those, hold on to those, use those as a resource.
Are we able to share this on our membership toolkit?
Yeah.
And our Facebook is private.
Okay.
Here's the link.
Great.
Okay.
Love it. I don't know where we're at with time and what you guys still have. Okay, so if there are questions, we're happy to.
I have noticed when I'm a 7th grader and 8th grader that the elementary school teachers don't use technology the same as the middle school. And so I asked at conferences, I'm like, it's great. In middle school, every teacher puts every assignment on there. So I gave that feedback and she was gonna look at it. But that would be my one thing, because now that I'm used to the middle school way, I'm like, you can log in and you can see everything immediately, and everything in 5th grade is still buried in folders and assignments. And she kind of explained that there's no normal worksheets and things, so it's not like an actual assignment to turn in, but I don't know if you know or anything.
I mean, I love getting that as feedback because then that's me as a coach. I'm like, well, guess what? I just talked to the CEO We were just talking generally that it probably would be more transparent for students and families if every assignment is posted, right? And why might that be? We can kind of talk through that. And that gets to the motivation of like, oh, I see that other perspective, right? Like I'm really getting that. And the team, because often they share some of the workload of like, I'm going to put the science stuff together, and we're going to put the art stuff together, right? So the team coming together to do that work is really important. And I think that transparency piece is really helpful because then if your child is falling behind, you can navigate to help them, right? So it's great feedback for us to like,
Yeah.
work on. We're always
Good
trying to get better.
reminders
Yeah.
to send out to teachers because, we want that consistency and also it's important, I think sometimes we lose track of like why we're doing certain things. And so the reminder of taking the time to put something in Schoology is not only helpful for your students so they have access to it, but also for your parents. It also helps in case you have any students that have, visibility needs, they can zoom up, right? Our kids learn differently, so not everything needs to happen on the iPad, but, we might have a child who could be more successful if they type or use voice to text. So just, re-upping that accessibility and consistency for our teachers.
So I do like the pencil and paper. I wish there was more pencil and paper in middle school, but having assignments online, so when your child like consistently forgets their math book at home, at school,
Right.
it's easy to
Yep.
find the page and print it. So
Yep.
that would be really helpful. 'Cause I do find assignments are buried or folders are empty. They're labeled, but empty.
Yeah.
And I'd love to help my child prepare when sixth grade comes to that.
Totally, to that workflow and that practice, you bet. And the only other thing to note the differences, and we're still kind of working through this, is the grade book starts at sixth grade in Schoology.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a big difference in that you might see some grades, but it's not the whole picture in elementary. So if you see grades, like that might be like, oh, they had a rubric and they did something and they had feedback there, but it's not their overall grade, so it's not, that's the tricky part with all the different grading components. But definitely having the work and labeled and knowing what it is and when it's due. It's very helpful, right? For learning. We all need that.
Yeah, like calendar in particular is, for example, when things are due and that kind of thing does not get updated in Schoology in fifth grade very much. And so having that.
Well, and all that is intertwined to that assignment.
Okay.
So each of those assignments, once that due date is on there, it populates in the calendar. You can look that way. It populates in the upcoming. You can look that way. If you didn't turn something in, it'll go to overdue.
Yeah.
And it'll show up on your parent digest as overdue assignments and then upcoming assignments and things that recently completed. So all those things, the more we can build that, the better, success we'll have in getting used to those routines, checking, looking, knowing that those things are expected.
And we do work, very in depth with our middle school teachers too, because now that they don't have one teacher and they're moving for every period, we've shown our teachers the difference between having everything in there with dates so that a student can click on calendar and see everything versus not, and having to dig through folders to find what work they have to do and what they have to get done, and how that just cognitive load on students is a lot. So that is definitely something we spend a lot of time with in middle school because of the transitioning teachers, which, they still have at elementary, but it's a little less. They kind of have that, their one main teacher who's kind of keeping an eye out for them too. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a YouTube question.
Yeah.
In addition, I appreciate it for big block. Besides going into the settings and changing the content so that it's restrictive and in addition to the filters that the district's on, is there anything else that we can do as parents to minimize or what the content that our kids can access?
It's like adult versus youth versus young child.
Yeah.
There's a wide range.
And I know there's YouTube kids, but it's really so, like, you think you've got all the, you've battened down the hatches and suddenly you're like, how did you get that?
Yeah.
How did this come through? So I don't know if there was something I was missing, or if like we've covered all bases if, we've got the district and then the settings that we as parents can control further.
kids. Well, as Amanda was talking about with the second filter that we added, even so, all those filters are just, there's so many components to each of those YouTube, whatever they clicked when they were creating it. You know, we even had a violin, like somebody teaching you how to like use the bow, like very simple, this guy, nice backdrop, it was a nice video. But it had an ad pop up because it was, he didn't select that it's for education,
yeah.
right? So there's so many components, whether it's the creator or there's just, so that's a tricky one.
And like we spent time talking about with our teachers, YouTube makes money, right? Via ads, via pop-ups, via suggested feeds, watch this video, click this. So they do make it very hard. And it, you know, I mean, every second there's a million more videos uploaded. And so YouTube does have people that are actually watching those videos and vetting videos, but they can't, you know, it's not real time. They can't keep up as fast as the content goes. So honestly, you know, the filters that we have in place for YouTube are they're probably the best of what you can have so that you can still access YouTube, but have filtered content at the same time. So really then you get into just blocking YouTube, which like we said is really hard because oftentimes if students are going to learn something or research, they want to watch videos, they want to engage in videos. At the elementary, we know it's a lot easier to say, all right, we're going to do this unit on, you know, sports or whatever it is, and they can go curate 10 videos in Edpuzzle and then provide students with those. Not saying our, you know, middle school and high school teachers can't do that too, but I know there's a lot more choice, a lot more options. And so kind of, at this point, what we feel is best practice is to really work with them and have those conversations around if you do come across something inappropriate, what do? You need to come tell me, let's, you know, you're not in trouble, but I don't want you to see that, you know, it's so, I think it's a lot about that conversation of engaging with that content, but we do truly feel that we have the best filter that's out there. Any other districts also have Lightspeed. It's the best of the best. So yeah.
Just another like little tip, like when you're having those conversations at home, maybe it's like, you know, it's kind of that rabbit hole, like neon interest, you know, like trying to pick a pink color or something. You know, you can just keep going, right? So to use the timer setting, and you can set the timer and then have it lock the screen. So you're going to do 30 minutes. Let's see if you can use that as a self-regulating. I'm only going to do whatever I'm doing for this many minutes. That's what we agreed upon, and then I'm going to go wash the dishes, right? So setting that, and then it goes to that lock screen, and then it's like, oh, okay, that means I'm done.
That's a YouTube thing?
That's just on the iPad.
You can do that by app too.
Yes,
go
but
to
I
the
mean, even as
screen
like a
time.
self-regulating.
Oh, just in the
learning
screen, yeah,
now.
you're- that's
Yes,
what you're talking
that's
about.
first,
You
yeah,
can set
like
limits for
adjusting the amount.
individual apps and websites.
Yes, I got it. Then like use a timer, and so then I was really
Yes.
confused. You're just talking about just setting screen time for.
No, you
Well,
can
you can
program
do
it.
both. So
I
you can
did
do,
that
yeah, you can do screen
for my
time.
first grader, and then at school, the teacher was like, what is your lock screen password? Oh, man.
Sure.
Because I had her timed out at 10 minutes or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can set hours. So you can actually go in and say like between these hours and these hours. Yeah, or I mean, setting a physical timer too, like literally like your little kitchen timer or whatever, right? So we're
Right.
working on those skills of like, all right, the timer went off. Yeah, giving them the opportunity to say, okay, now I'm gonna set this down and I'm gonna go do what I said I was gonna do, you know?
So you can pick like specific apps saying like,
Yeah.
that one I want to block, right? That one's no go. This one they have 20 minutes. You can shut the thing off at like 7.
And websites.
Yeah.
You can block
Mhm.
websites.
Certain
Yep.
websites. Yeah.
Pinterest,
There's a
Reddit,
lot you can do,
and
and then you
Tumblr.
can really cause trouble.
Those are all blocked. Those should all be blocked.
So the other, so yes, you can do that in screen.
I don't know about,
But not on
Reddit.
home or device.
I've added them.
Okay.
Yes.
Tumblr.
Yeah, I was just even thinking of empowering your child to learn to regulate. So just using the clock, and then you just set the timer. So that's, because we're doing that as the parents, but we want to teach them that they don't want to be sitting there for an hour, right? Like, didn't you want to go play with your friends? Why don't you work for 15 minutes and then go? So then setting the timer, and then you just set it, it's the bottom setting, to stop playing or stop, and it'll go to that lock screen. And so that's something that they can learn. And so my daughter learned that, And she used that during COVID times, and she's using it now, like when she needs to move on and do something else.
Which is a great life skill, like as adults, let's be
Right.
honest.
Yeah.
We sometimes need to do that ourselves, or you're like,
Right.
I need to stop watching Below Deck and go clean the house. And so you're like, all right, I'm just gonna, 5 minutes, I'm gonna start cleaning. And then once you start, once you kind of pull yourself away from the technology, it's easier. So teaching those skills,
Right.
I think, is huge.
With our youngest, we're gonna do more of the parental stuff, but then as they kind of continue to get in the upper, then we want to start to have them build those own internal, I should probably, move on or.
Sorry.
You testing your timer?
Just.
Yep, that's one of the rings.
So what do you mean, what do you mean, like,
So like just using the clock.
yeah,
You're going
and
to
so then so that's what that means. is
Yep.
Stop playing, that
Yeah,
will
it'll
stop
go back,
whatever.
it'll go to the home screen, the lock screen.
Perfect,
Yep.
thank you. Good information.
Yeah, I should put it on,
Yeah, you can add it.
but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
That, I was unaware of that one. so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
So
maybe add
simple.
it in case
Yeah.
people watching
Yeah.
At a later date want to see, we can throw that in the slides. That'll live change.
Yeah, it's just when timer ends, it's just says stop playing. And so whatever it is, it'll stop. And it'll go to the lock screen.
You access that to the clock?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
just the
see?
basic clock.
Yeah, the built-in,
I didn't know
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Apple has a lot of really great built-in
Yep.
accessibility features and solid. Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah,
It's so simple.
My little girl in second grade has a little timer that she likes to
Oh,
so she's sort of doing that.
Yes.
Yep.
There's a lot of research about that, using like physical egg
We can see
timers.
that.
and-
Yep. Yes. Those are great.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Those are great.
It's an actual physical little clock that I bought off Amazon in 60 minutes. And when you set the timer, it turns red. And then as it counts down, the red disappears. So it's helpful for building. Timeline.
Yeah. A quick visual.
I have a general question that is probably maybe middle school too. What are the students told about technology and like the access that they're given? I mean, obviously, if you've got YouTube at home and then you can't get to YouTube here, it's like, oh, come on, this is a pain. Like, do they get that, like, well, we're doing this because there's stuff that we don't want you to see, or is there like some critical thinking involved in that discussion, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think like that slide that we had that has the pictures of the home screen, where our goal is all about what's developmentally appropriate. So I would say like at our youngest grade, that is the conversation, is like, what is appropriate, what's right for you at your age, right? At middle school, I mean, I feel like all aboard, did you call it all aboard at the middles too?
Yeah.
So middle school, Sarah worked very closely with Freya at MMW to develop lessons to really start the year strong for kids. And the high school did that last year too. We're gonna get MME on board next year too. And, really making sure that we're starting out the year very intentional around what tech they have, why they have it, how to use it, expectations in the building.
Right, had expectations of everything. Like, you
Right,
want to
right.
know what's expected of you with everything. Yep.
All of
Stuff
that.
goes away, that, all of that was gone over.
Yes.
Yep. And advisory, or during that advisory time, they often go over the handbook and things like that, and, really kind of answer questions and have discussion about those, so that they kind of understand, well, why might that be a problem? Well, I guess if it goes off during class, that might distract people. Yes, exactly, that's why we do it, because we're here to learn, right? And we want everybody to be able to learn in this environment. So that's why we give you these, right? So what are we supposed to do on these? We're supposed to learn,
And it's all about the positive, right? So instead of saying like, you don't have YouTube or you don't have this, it's all about, okay, why and what's the understanding, and having that conversation. And, our teachers are really great in advisory lessons too about engaging students with the content. So we just had a group of high schoolers that are in the Vantage Public Policy strand that did primary and secondary research on AI. And so they're actually presenting to the board on Thursday night. They did a presentation to a bunch of district leaders regarding what they believe we should do as a district regarding AI. And then we picked one group, they were all amazing, that's actually gonna present to the board Thursday night, just with what they learned and what their recommendations are. So that's, I think, a big piece of what we try to do and believe in Minnetonka too, is empowering our students and making sure that they are, a part of that. So not having your cell phone out at school, having those conversations around thinking, how does this help you be successful and set you up for success versus viewing it as punishment.
Yeah.
And I will also say from the high school perspective, AI has created a giant wormhole. And one of the things that Minnetonka has done very proactively is, for example, the website ChatGPT, the kids were going on and having their homework done for them and submitting it by an AI. And I speak from personal experience. And so the teachers actually have fail safes to scan homework to see if there are trigger pieces that check for that kind of AI. And the fact that that even exists blows my mind. And they're saying now that college campuses have created entire programs that are targeting how to determine what has been written by a student versus what's been written by AI. And I can't even.
Yeah, well, and some of the conversations we're having too is, AI has been around forever, right? ChatGPT is just if you've ever heard of Gardner's hype cycle, right? You've got all this crazy leading up, right? And then kind of you go down to the disillusionment, and then you actually figure out where does it fit in society? What's the role of it? And so we're actually at the peak of the hype cycle right now with AI. So it's just tool after tool after tool. It's all over the news. We're up here. So we're moving towards the disillusionment of it's not actually a human. It can't, and so a big piece of the conversations we have around AI and with our teachers is also just like when a calculator came out or Google came out, it's not about the end product, but it's about the process to the product. So I know this is your work. I know you wrote this paper because we had conversations. I've engaged with you. I've asked about your research. So the end product is just the last thing, right? But the process of how you got there, your work, that's really what the whole thing is about anyways. Yeah.
So I had a question regarding transitions. So coming from a child that was homeschooled or virtual school for 2.5 years, so going from that environment where nothing was locked down, or very minimal was locked down at that time, going into now where things are being more locked down and she knows that she has access to these things and she knows how to get around everything. How do you soften the blow, I guess? I mean, yes, you can rip off the Band-Aid. If anybody knows my child, that does not work very well. So any resources along those lines?
So when you say soften the blow, are you saying now that they kind of know what's out there and they don't have access to it,
Right.
how do you bridge that gap,
Right.
and have that conversation? So I mean, I think a big part of that too is about what's appropriate, having those conversations around what is this tool, and even having those conversations around why they believe they need access to certain things, right? And maybe all the options that they do have access to instead of focusing on what they don't have access to. And that need, what is the core need, right? Where is this behavior coming from? What are you actually angry about, right? What do you need? What do you want to engage in? And let's figure out how to get you that in a different way versus focusing on what you don't have and what you don't have access to.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's I think some of the common sense, family agreements and some of these tools, I think can still be really helpful to help guide those conversations or create those agreements. Because, as kids get older, right, when you're thinking about, do they need a cell phone or not? When should I give them a cell phone? When is it appropriate? How do we set up expectations? I was just reading a New York Times article on, I think it was called Being 13. And it's a year-long, the writer worked with 4 or 5 teenage girls for a year to kind of learn about their lives. And one of them, she really wanted TikTok, and she wrote she made a presentation for her mom with these slides about how to get TikTok. And they actually sat down and they made an agreement about how she was going to use TikTok, what she was going to do on TikTok, what she was going to do if she came across something inappropriate or something inappropriate happened, and really laying that all out before she ever engaged in the platform too, I think just really helps set kids up for success.
That's the district have in science, want phones, because you didn't realize they get phones in 6th grade. We waited until like 7th, but now he's had it for 6 months. And so I maybe beyond the scope for Scenic Heights, but I'm just curious if you have anything we're going to this night.
Yeah. We don't have guidance as a district per se, because it's really about what, your family situation, and it depends, how close you live and the sports your student is in, and, it's really individual, but Common Sense Media does have some really great resources. I don't think we have a link in here, but we'd be happy to share those too, just regarding how to make that decision and all the things to take into account, so that, because you can't really go back.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go back, right? So having that conversation around, okay, what's appropriate? And now there are so many tools that exist where you have this watch that can call 4 people. And so if the need is really emergency or whatever it is, well, when they're at school, you can always get a hold of them. But if it's because they're at sports or X, Y, or Z, you can do, the watch. And so just really having those conversations about what's appropriate for your family, because they're going to see the gamut, right? They're going to see 2nd graders with cell phones, and they're going to see kids that don't get a cell phone until they're 16 and they have a car, so.
And yeah, all the other things you said about just evaluate, like even just thinking of that conversation, it's just, that's a big part of it. Because yeah, I've been through it too, and it's just like, oh, it's really, okay, so then we talk about what are you going to do with it? Why do you want it? Those kind of things. And then talk about how we're going to adjust things so that you don't get the growth. You don't get this much growth, enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, I can take it back.
Yeah.
Right, that's not
Right.
a problem, I can make it last.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I ask a quick question about the Google product?
Yeah.
And the docs and Gmail and all of that, and I'm just curious how our students' privacy is protected in light of, knowing that Google calls emails and, utilizes that data for the development. Like, how does that work as a type of the student work?
Yeah, so we have a Google Apps for Education license with them, which does provide us some extra guardrails. Like one of the we're actually looking at this today. I was at a meeting at the high school. Google actually made a committee called, it's like Google Owl or something, and it's all about how they can be really smart and everything that they can do to really make sure that our students' information and privacy is safe. And so one of the things they did recently is a lot of websites have that login with Google button. You noticed that?
Yeah.
And so students were able to do that and log into anything they wanted, essentially with their @mtka.org email. And as of about a month ago, they put a brick wall there, and now we get to approve it, and then they can log in with Google. So now we know as an institution, okay, we use, Edpuzzle. So yes, kids can click login with Google. We do not use Reddit. So no, they can't log in with Google, right? So, and even we just had one LinkedIn. We were like, well, it's not inappropriate, but you're not supposed to have a LinkedIn account until you're 16. So they shouldn't need that. So no. And then if we have instances that come up where teachers say, oh, we really need access to this tool, then that allows us to really preemptively dig in and evaluate those to make sure that students, because any place that you're logging in with an account is an opportunity for that account to be compromised, right? And so now as a district, we're able to really hone in on that. And we're really lucky to have our executive director of technology, Mike Dronin, who spends a ton of time with cybersecurity. He's done some really great tabletop exercises for our district around cybersecurity with another leader from ASIO, who actually just presented yesterday or today to the cybersecurity committee for Minnesota about some of the cybersecurity work. So we as a district are really very tight on what we do. Our technology department, how we roster everything, it's it's very tight. So, yeah. Yeah. All right, well, you have our contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Seriously, anything, we're open, we're here to support you as parents as well. Like, the relationship between parents in order to help our students be successful is huge. We know the difference that engaged parents make in our students' lives and their ability to really learn. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, please do.
Send it to us.
Yeah, do you want me, Tori, do you want me to just email you the slides as well?
Sure.
Or do you have them?
I've got the
You have it?
written down, and I
Okay.
can post that out on MTK.
Perfect. Perfect. If you have any issues, just let us know and we'll get you the slides. So, yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will reach out to you guys. I'll probably do a meeting
Yeah.
in December.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, we'd love to. And if it's MME, then it'd probably be me, Sarah, too, but Peter Gaussman is her counterpart at MME, so they work very closely.
GAUS.
And double N, yeah. So, or you,
US's?
one S. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have to do booster.
We have to do booster. So we have committee reports, but we don't really need to go through them.
Do you have anything
Unless
you want
anybody
to
wants
present?
to. Do I want? No, okay. So let's just skip to booster. To booster.
Scoot to boost. Do you want me in front, or you all have this in front of you? Are you okay with me doing this? This one is first. Sorry, they're stapled and up on the main, up there, yeah. All right, as you all
Okay.
know, we had an unbelievably successful year once again, with booster time. We ended up, these numbers are a little bit off, and I'm just confirming with booster what the final numbers were, but what we ended up being the final gross total is $116,846.34. So about $1,500 of uncollected donations. And so we take the max, we have hit their max threshold for percentage take, so we take 75% of that total. And so we should have finished at $85,634.75. And then we pay a $2,000 base cost to them each year just to cover the program. So final total should have been, that is less the $2,000. So $85,000 is kind of the net amount that we took. So obviously that is amazing, that is huge. And I've gotten some feedback from kiddos, and I'm also gonna get some feedback from other families before I bail on all of you. But the thought is that we maybe go back to the fun run itself next year. Those of you with just kindergarten kids have not experienced that. We've seen every iteration of it, but what the main focus of that is that it's a large track that they do actually run 35 laps. And what we had done in the past was we actually marked each lap that the kids ran. We, doing the obstacle course, obviously we didn't mark every obstacle, we just said every child ran 35 laps, or 35 obstacles. So what we would do is remove that check mark piece from the fun run. And so we would just, again, mark it as they ran 35 laps. Because they can't exceed that, I will tell you that plenty of them made a goal of how many tally marks after the 35 could they get. I think I had one kid do 90. So they all get very excited about that, but there's no reason for us to do that tally mark, and it just disrupts the flow. So that is one conversation that we will have about this, and that is not something that we need to vote on. Just wanted to let you know that was in the running. The obstacle course has been great. I would like to make some changes to it if we were to do it again, either next year or in the future. But it's something that's nice that kind of breaks things up for the kids. Maybe at some point make it so it alternates every other year, fun run one year, and the obstacle course the next year. So as you can see, our work with Booster has been unbelievably successful. This was our sixth year working with them. And I believe over the last 5 years, we have grossed over $600,000, I think. And so we switched last year was the first year that we switched to what's called the shared program with them. We had originally been doing full, which was Booster doing everything related to the program. So they did the pep rally at the beginning, they did the fun run at the end, and then they distributed the prizes. They visited the classrooms every day. They had staff in the building every day of the fundraiser and all of those things. And you obviously have a smaller take in your percentage to cover the cost of having their employees in the system, in the school. And so last year, what we wanted, the biggest feedback we got was about the prizes and about the prize distribution. The junk that comes home, and it is literally junk that comes home from Booster, is not great. It motivates the kids, they love it, and all of the parents hate it. And then also we struggled with the illusion of equity. Parents complained that their kid didn't get prizes and other kids in the class did, and Joe will tell you that's what we call a learning moment or a teaching moment. But so those were the two things that we really wanted to address. And so by switching to the shared program, we upped our percentage take, which then allowed us to make our own prizes. And so that's what we've done the last 2 years, we meaning me. And we have found a distributor that you can get them in bulk. You design them and they ship them to you. And that's, I mean, both last year and this year, even with the increase in students and the increase in what we've raised, I spent almost exactly the same amount on prizes. So about $9,000 total to cover all of the prizes for every student that earned anything in the whole school. And that is something that I think really needs to continue because it definitely makes a difference, especially for the parents. And tell me if I'm wrong, but having something that's Minnetonka and Scenic Heights directly related, that is actually something that you would use for those of you who are in kindergarten. Last year we did a Bluetooth speaker, we did an insulated water bottle. So the idea is something that the families actually will use and want to use year over year. So my recommendation is that Booster works really well with our school. They work really well with our administrators. They work really well with us. I have had a relationship with them now for 6 years, with 5 of those being with the same person, and she will continue to be in that role for the foreseeable future. And so, as you can see from this is just this year, but it is almost consistently this same information. With the 87% registration, I think last year we might have even gotten up to 89% registration, which means 87% of the students in the school families went out and signed up on Membership Toolkit. Then the participation is the 79%. That means 79% of the school total then participated at some level online. And as you can see, $126 per student. That's been pretty consistent. I think it might be a little bit higher this year. And one of the things that they talk about is parent giving versus non-parent giving. They'd like to see the percentage of non-parent giving higher, because what that means is that the parents, year over year, obviously there is fundraising fatigue where parents get tired of being asked for money. But this has been a consistent number for us between 38 and 42% of non-parent giving. So there's whatever it is that we're doing, we haven't decreased or increased significantly the population that we're receiving money from. With that all having been said, they are changing their pricing structure next year. What they have found is that they do a really good job of giving as much money back to the schools as possible. We are a little bit of an anomaly because we raise so much money, we have maxed out their scale. But even at the lower levels of the scale, they try to give back as much as they can to the schools and still cover their costs. And what they're finding is that just hasn't been working as well for them, and what the system is doing has been shifting not only for school fundraisers, but for other fundraisers as well. I don't know if you have seen this in other things you've done or not. But what they're doing is they're going to what's called a donor tip program. So what it does is right now, when you go out, it'll say the credit card fee is going to be 2.5%, whatever. Are you willing to cover the cost of that 2.5%? You can say yes, you can say no. And what this does is it actually tells the consumer and the donator, your school is currently paying 30% is back to us to do this fundraiser. Would you like to donate, or would you like to tip, or would you, I don't know exactly what the language is, would you like to cover some or all of that cost for your school? And what then they spell out what that means is that, so an example of this is at $100, if somebody is donating $100, the platform fee is what gets affected, is at 15%. They can say your school is being charged 15% back to our organization. You can donate up to as much as you want, but up to the 15% to cover that. So you would donate $100, and you would then donate an additional $15 on top of your $100 in order to cover that percentage fee. And I said, okay, explain to me, basically we're asking our families to give more, and how have you seen this impacted based on that? Are people giving less money because they only want to give $100, so now they're only going to give us $85 towards the school because they aren't paying that $15 to cover the cost? Or how? And they said they really haven't seen a significant change, especially in schools our size and in our demographics in terms of median salary of what, I can't come up with the word I'm looking for. Thank you, God. And so what this means, so this spells it out really well, actually, and I did the calculation so I can give you real numbers for us as well. But what it does is it gives, so the first piece of it is up to $75,000, we would have a 30% fee instead of the 25% fee. But the difference is after that $75,000, the service fee goes away completely. So in our case, we actually net out at closer to a 20% fee then, because we raised so much more than $75,000. So that's one piece of it, which is kind of nice. We actually, for that service fee, that does net down a little bit. But then what they're saying is for all of that, then the platform fee becomes 15%. So the platform fee is a flat fee on top of any group that organizes a fundraiser with them. And so that's where they would say, here is where the total percentage that they're paying back to us is, would you like to cover that? And what they're finding is that donors are donating enough back to bring that 15% down to 5 to 6%. And so they're finding that it's at more of that 6% average for that first $75,000. And then what they're finding is after that, spelling out that now the service fee is gone, they're actually finding that the 15% drops down even a little bit more. I would be curious to see how this plays out for us. I know that in our school, a lot of families donate additionally out of guilt because they're not volunteering because of the distance that they come to the school. So here they did the calculation based on our gross total, which would actually drop down to the 116. But what I did is I looked at it and I said, okay, so if we paid the full 30%, that would be $52,500 on the $75,000. And if we paid the full 15% on the remaining $43,421, that would drop it down to just a little less than $40,000. So we're still looking at a take of $82,000. And I think the biggest difference there is because of that net out at the end with the 0%, dropping us down a little bit below the 25%. Based on their calculations, what they're saying is that they would believe us to raise $3,000 more than we did this year. I don't necessarily believe that. I'd be curious to see, one of the things that I pulled was, so for the credit card fee, the $2.95 per transaction, we had almost 80% of us, of the transactions covered that cost. So that bodes well for parents being willing to give something on top of what they're donating. It just, I find it hard to believe that people are going to donate an additional 15% to cover that cost. But she said they looked at this in 1,200 school districts, or in 1,200 organizations that they've used, and that is the average that they've come up with. And so then I did the calculation based on if we did the full, I can't speak English. If we did the full 45,000 at the beginning, so that would drop us down to 41,000, and then the full 15% at the end, that's the 40. So that would drop us down to about 78,000. So we would drop about $7,000, but then the base cost goes from $2,000 to $1,000. So that would actually put us at maybe $5,000 less than what we did this year. And so in the grand scheme of things, it does not change what we would do year over year. I think if we did exactly the same as what we did here, based on not as quite as a generous calculation as they did, I think we would end up netting about the same as what we're doing this year. I'm curious, I need to ask Nicole how they lay this out on the donor page. I'd like to see what that looks like and how they explain it to donors. And so I need to get a visual from her for that. But the idea would be that they're calling it a combined expected fee of 35 to 36%. But I don't even really see that as much because we raise over $75,000, I feel like it becomes more of a 25 to 28% based on their numbers. So I'd say call it 30 to 35% based on our numbers. So in the grand scheme of things, no, I don't think it changes how much we raise. My only concern is asking families for that little bit more. What are your thoughts? From your personal opinion, what would you be willing to do? How do you feel about people that you asked in your family, et cetera? How do you think people would react to that?
Well, I think when you do Give and Go, they'll give you the option after, so it's not an impulse buy, but you make the donation and then they say, would you like to give a little bit more? And they give you the option of what you'd like to cover the cost.
Okay.
So I'd be
So
curious.
you have seen it, okay.
I would expect it to be like that, where it's like, I'm committed to 100.
Yeah.
Would you like to say, would you like to cover the cost of this? So Scenic doesn't have to, right? So I think it'd be interesting to see what the language is.
Yeah.
Because they could say no. So I would think
Right.
that people wouldn't say, well, I'm gonna pay 85 instead, but they may say no
Yeah.
to it.
Okay.
But asking grandma and grandpa and, uncle and aunt every year for more money, like we've started making little crafts and things and be like, here, here's another door sign and stuff. So it's like, that's a different thought of like, what is that gonna look like to the nearby?
Right.
That isn't like me and dad, right?
Right.
But yeah, I think it's pretty standard for like donation apps. So to me, it doesn't seem.
And that's what they're saying, is that what they've seen in the marketplace is they're calling it tips. I don't know what other organizations call it, but asking for, spelling it out, your organization is paying 15% to us. Would you like to help say any of those costs to them? If so, you can donate an additional amount. So.
You need to pay a transaction fee and then the 15% donor.
So that's what I don't know. I don't know if the $295 just gets built into that then. My hope would be that it's not two line items that say, well, you want to pay $295 plus this? And we can also turn off that transaction fee ask if it is a separate line item, and we can just leave that so people don't have to be asked that as well. I'd be curious to see how that plays out. But yes, I agree with that. It's like, you just gave us money. Do you want to cover this? And do you want to cover this? And then do you want to cover this? Yes, I agree with that.
I think that's what it was, is we had two separate things, and then the tip was like, I don't know,
Well, that's not how they did it this year.
really?
No.
Maybe it's just the word that tip that just kind of threw me off, that it was like, well, we're paying for the services, but the tip actually goes to help cover those. It's not in addition to,
Right, they're tipping the organization. Instead of
Right.
us, they're tipping the organization.
I think GoFundMe might use the word tip.
Okay.
Right, and then I think Gives and Goes, and would you like to offset the cost or something?
And that's what I'm curious, but I like that language a little
Yeah.
bit better. And so that's why I'm curious to see what exactly it is, what the language Booster uses.
And maybe I wonder if we have options, that might be
yeah.
No, but I do like that idea.
On your website, please.
Oh, I've already been doing that for the last 4 years.
And do you have to give the whole 50% or what?
No, you can choose, that's the nice thing, you can,
5%.
yes, and that's why they say that, yes, they do have people that say no, and that's 100% an option, that the question is, would you like to? It's not being added on, it's not any of that, it's would you like to, and people 100% can say no. And what they're finding is that some people do cover that full 100% cost, and then more likely people are covering, well, yeah, I'm happy to cover 5% of that, I'm happy to add $10 to this to cover that. And I do think part of it does say, in some way, to offset the cost
Yeah.
that Scenic Heights is paying. So I think that is along the lines of the language that they say, but yes, I do want it to make sure that it's clear that it's not all or nothing. You can do a little bit if you want, if you have an extra $2 you're willing to throw in there, great. Anything helps, is kind of the thought.
And it might be really good optics to kind of educate people on like what a good deal we have with booster funds,
Right.
right? Because there's some numbers have been thrown at me over the years, and it's like, oh wait, no, that's not,
Well,
like we get less than we pay out. Has been the observation by some people, and we
Yeah.
actually had those in the past that I've heard about, right? In this area where we're spending a lot more than we're keeping.
when we started, we were using a company called Chip Shop. And it was, it was a catalog you could shop from, getting anything from food items to Tupperware to spatulas to gift wrap. I mean, it kind of covered the gamut. And they took 53%. And that was, and then we went with Apex for the first 3 years that we're doing this. And Apex is a very similar company. It's a fun one, just like these guys. And they did not have a sliding scale until Booster came onto the scene. And now I know they do have a sliding scale like Boosters, but they took 47%. And that was the main reason why I switched, because they were not willing to work with us. It would have been our 4th year with them. And he basically said, well, we can switch you out and save you $1,500. And I'm like, we just raised, I think that year, I think we raised $85,000 gross. And it was like, I need to see a little more work than that. And so Booster does, as I said, does a really nice job of trying to minimize their impact on the fundraiser. Now, if we only raised $50,000, they would take something closer to 45%. So that there is that little bit of it, and I think other companies that we work with would have a similar piece where the more you raise, the less they take. But what they have found is that their current model no longer covers all of their expenses, and is not sufficient for them any longer. And so that's why they switched to this, because apparently this is basically what other organizations that are doing fundraising are doing. And so I'm glad to hear that you've seen this in other places. I don't apparently donate to many places. But yeah, so that's the biggest piece of it. Is it does not look like that it will impact, even if no one donated any additional dollars, we would drop about $5,000 based on my calculations. So it does not look like it would have a huge impact on us. And if it really truly does work the way that they say, it would increase our take slightly. But again, that is asking our families and donors to donate a little bit more. So that's where I struggle. Obviously, having done 11 years of fundraisers here, we've given plenty of money. And we don't have anything significant that we are fundraising for in terms of when we first started, the playground was brand new. And that was something that was really big that we were fundraising for. And so now, and it was funny because I've never actually looked at this before in the last couple of years, but we currently, based on our budget, our expenses are greater than what our bottom line income is. Scenic Heights historically has had one of the largest budgets out of all the elementary schools in the district because of the OLC, because of the classroom support, and some of the things that have changed in the last few years in particular are the Scholastic magazines that we get used to be able to be paid for out of Scholastic dollars. And right now we have a huge surplus in Scholastic dollars, so we have to figure out what to do with that. But that Scholastic changed that when they went to their for-profit status, and so you can no longer use Scholastic dollars on the magazines, and that ends up being about about $7,000. So that's $7,000 that we didn't used to have in our budget. The OLC, we need to revisit because we used to pay for 3 visits from the Three Rivers District to come with a naturalist and teach every classroom 3 times out of the year. Well, they told us we were being selfish and that they needed to be able to go to other schools, so we now only get 1 visit from a naturalist per class. And so we've left that line item budget at $13,000, just with the idea we would like to find another way to bring in that similar level of education because we have that space down there. We'd love to be able to continue to utilize it. And so things like the Arboretum have the plant mobile and they can come and that kind of thing. And then what Marie is doing in the courtyard with the master gardeners, that master gardeners actually have required number of hours and that they have to volunteer. So that's curriculum that we might be able to add, which would be free. So those are some of the things that we can look at in terms of changing the budget some. But overall, the things that we have created have 100% been for the benefit of the kids. We pay for their field trips to the Children's Museum, or to Children's Theater and Stages Theater. We now are covering the cost of busing. Statewide, there are limits on how much parents can be charged for field trips, et cetera, as fees. And so I think they raised that some, but I don't know about you guys, but 5th grade, I think we paid $50 for all of the field trips this year. And I believe that's the max. It used to be $40, so I think they did increase that. But as you notice in one of the items, we had a kindergarten classroom come to us because the cost of one of their field trips went up $2 per child. We are noticing that busing prices in general are going up per child. The roller skating last year would have been about a $9,000 expense, but they had to switch vendors for multiple reasons, and that increased by $3 per student. So we know that those costs are going to continue to, if not increase, at least stay at the higher level that they are. And so being able to raise this level of money means that we can still cover that. And people say, oh, well, you're Minnetonka, you don't have that many kids, your families can afford it. We have more scholarship children in our building than you would think. And we have more families that it is a hardship for. And so being able to offer this such that where I'm able to work with the social workers. So all of the families who, if you didn't donate because you didn't want to, that's one thing. But for the families that couldn't donate, I was able to put together prize bags of the first 3 prizes for those kiddos because it's not their fault they couldn't donate. Being able to go on the field trips, making sure that it is transparent, that it's not a scholarship thing for them. They get a yearbook at the same time in the same way that all the other kids do. And so that's part of what this budget does for us, which is nice. So from that perspective, I don't want to change something that's not broken. And so that's why I do strongly believe that we should continue to work with Booster, only because it doesn't sound like what they're doing is over the top or extravagant, and it sounds like it is actually more comparable to what's going on in their industry. I think one of the things I'd like to find out is what language that they use and what that looks like on the form itself. But other than that, I think the other conversation that we will have, because I won't be here, is switching back to the full service so that the booster people would then be responsible for next year. Obviously not, because we only do t-shirts every other year, but they would be responsible for distributing t-shirts. They would actually then be responsible for compiling and distributing the prizes, which if you ask Val, that was about 30 hours of work with 7 people doing it for 8 hours.
And someone's
house,
At someone's house.
lower level.
My husband's really happy to have all those boxes in the house. And so those are some things that we could work out with them, which means they do take a slightly higher percentage, but it does lessen the load on whoever takes over after I'm gone. But we can still do our own prizes with that, and because we can still do our own prizes with that, they would also give other pieces, because we would be asking them. I think I would actually continue to not have them be in the school all week. We have found that that has been really successful. It has not changed our level of fundraising in any way in terms of, because what they will tell you in the initial conversation is you need to distribute prizes every day because that's a motivator, and you need to have us in the classroom every day because that's a motivator. And what we have found is 100% true is that we don't need either of those things in our classrooms. Our teachers are good collaborators with us, and they are willing to show the videos, they do the conversations, they do the hype about the classroom prizes and all of that, and that has shown that that is just as successful. So what that means is that Booster continues to work with us to find other ways to supplement what we're not taking from them, because we're not using their prizes, we're not using their people. So one of the things Nicole said is we can, again, maybe do a full/shared type of program, jerry-rigging the percentages that we take based on how we do that, which is another piece. They're willing to work with us. They're willing to work with the main office and all of those things. So, there's my 20-minute spiel. I'm sorry I made you guys go over.
So I say as long as there's decreased confusion, is there any way to just make it a set donation rather than per lap? Because that caused a lot of confusion, at least for my family last year, because when it comes up, it looks like a foreign, charge as $1. And so my father-in-law canceled the credit card, the whole nine. I mean, it was a mess.
The way they charge, because it's up, they say it's, depending on how many laps, and now we're gonna, the tiki marks, if anybody knows, that's like you're volunteering with a Sharpie and you're like writing on these stickers on these kids'
And it's
backs.
hard to
So,
like,
and your back hurts, but they would say, per lap, so they would say this amount to this amount is the range that you would pay.
Right.
So maybe we get rid of that range and just say they're assumed to do 35 laps and here's what it will be. So he saw a $1 charge, saw a range of payment, he didn't know when it was gonna charge. It set off a bunch of red flags.
yeah, and it does look like it comes from a foreign country.
It's supposed to say Booster.
It did not. And so, because he sent me a screenshot of it, and there was nothing in there from the email that
Can you,
would
do
have.
you still have that? Can you send that to
Yeah,
me?
there might be certain users or certain.
Yeah, no, I would, that's good information to have, because I would
Yeah.
like to know that and share that with them, because what it's supposed to say is, mybooster.com or Booster Enterprises, something along those lines is what the charge is supposed to be, and you're only supposed to be charged after the fun run is done and the number of laps have been confirmed. So that is all information that's good for me to have.
So I'll search.
But yes, that may or may not be something that we can change, the flat donation versus the per lap donation, because they call a flat donation of $30 equal to $1 per lap, except for we run 35 laps.
Yeah.
So if you do a flat donation of $1, then or if you do a donation of $1 per lap, you're paying $35. And so, yes, I do see a little bit of the confusion there. I've always just done it per lap, so I guess I just never thought about it. But yeah, my parents did do a flat donation this year. So yes, that is one piece that is a piece that's confusing, the 30 versus 35.
My kid was absent, I remember, on the day, and I didn't expect to get the donation back, but then it was like per lap. And I was like, well, they ran 0 laps. So, yeah.
Right, well, and that's the other piece of it is, because we don't do the tally marks, then every student that's registered gets entered as a 35 lap donate, or 35 total laps run, whether they're there or not. We don't take attendance on the day of, so every student that's in the system, if you registered, gets entered as 35 laps. So yes, that is one piece. If they didn't run, that's a question you could, I mean, that would be an email that somebody could send and say, my kid didn't run, can I remove my donation?
It seemed easier, yeah.
Right, that I understand. I totally understand that.
We want to hold the vote, Jenny, because I think we have a quorum, we could just do yay or nay on paper.
We can, my question for those of you here, is this something that you feel you've gotten enough information to vote on and be confident in it? Or is it something that you think that the rest of the membership should hear, even though they're not here and they didn't earn that right? But that's just another point. I'm okay either way. I know it's a big decision. It's not a large change from the school's perspective. It's more of a large change just from a donor perspective. And it's not a large change, it's just a slightly larger.
And this is, sorry, the decision that we're talking about is that 15% or not. And the whole 50%, right?
The decision we're making is whether we will use them next year or not. We are not making a decision on the tipping. That is the new structure that they are moving forward with.
To be mutually beneficial, like they need to do it to cover their costs that are changing, but they think it'll be mutually beneficial. To the tune of a higher percentage, we may find that it's less than that, but it will be minimal.
Yes, we are voting on whether we are going to use booster next year or not. If we do, this is the structure that we will have. There are some tweaks that we may be able to make that will make it more user-friendly, and depending on what the language is, if we can tweak that too.
Sounds like the other companies that you've come across and used have been higher percentages.
So
I'm sure it's pretty good.
and we go, at the district meetings for PTA, right? We get a lot of people ask us about booster, right? They want to hear about booster, they want to use booster, if they're still using Apex or whoever they're using. So I mean,
And the people who have been using Apex historically are actually going to switch to booster next year.
If we don't vote for them, then someone has to find a new vendor. right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have somebody that's taken on the
I know
finance
someone
committee
like
yet. We don't have anybody
Someone-
making any
someone, I don't know
plans,
who.
so it would be silly not to.
Right.
I just think that if we don't vote, we're never gonna get anybody to run it. Because then that's a much, much bigger job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
already a big job
Yep.
already, or at least it appears so. I say we.
Oh, and do people want to vote privately, or are we in favor of a public vote?
Okay. I'm okay with the public. Okay, anybody not?
Then you need to ask all in favor.
Okay, so all in favor of using booster for 24, 25, say aye.
No.
Oh, everyone else is in favor?
Yeah.
I think we still do.
Yeah.
8, I think. Yeah. Okay, no nays? All right. 8 ayes. 8 ayes.
And if we want to ask Jackson to make it legal, then we can.
Okay, yeah, perfect. All right, well, this was really good. We went way over, and that was
Yeah,
completely
I
opposite
apologize.
of what I had anticipated. So that was a really great presentation. Thank you so much, Tori. Tori got that.
Yeah, that was amazing, and I
Awesome.
definitely want to have them at that meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna go watch that video. We got the little QR code picture. You're gonna put that on MTK up there on Facebook. All right, well, good. Well,
We need to close the meeting.
I will close the meeting. So, okay, we are ready to end. Can I please get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you. Can I get a second? Thank you, Joanna.
There we go now.
Thank you. The meeting is now adjourned.
Goodbye. Thank you guys for being here. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. It is Jenny, J-E, and I-E. How about Isabella, P-R-Z-Y?
Oh, yeah, don't mind the chicken scratches, but help yourself.
Did you walk?
Thank you. Good for you.
At gmail.com.
Oh, yeah, well, and that's what we're talking about is, roller skates were 9 and now they're 12. And it was 8 and now, or 7 and now it's 9. And so it's like, there's these little tiny things.
That's well in my Gmail. So that I need to know for sure.
Temporary spring cleaning.
Yes. Yeah.
On the day he did the donation, not the day of the fundraiser.
Right.
Okay,
There should be no, that's income, there should be expenses for that too.
That's
Like down below.
understandably so.
But yeah. Sorry, and it's too small for me to.
Yeah, and I mean, really and truly, I look back at the year before, but you should not have any problems, especially based on what you spent so far. Because your levels on conferences, I believe, were less than what they spent on conferences.
Yeah. It's not a moneymaker. Yeah. So, yeah, so I mean, you've got the 4 trucks, the inflatables, you may find Joanna Renner.
Okay.
We're like, meals for the teachers.
Yeah, okay.
We're like,
Yeah. More people fear, okay. Yeah.
There's always big lines. Yeah, there's really big lines.
Yeah.
So,
Little things, should not cost a lot of money, but something that
Yeah, and I also will tell you that I have tax exempt accounts at Target, Wayfair, Amazon, and Walmart, and Michael's. So I can email that to you.
Because, if you would say, I talked to them, I gave them the code, and they say they would be like,
Yeah, no, yep.
and then
So,
like the fifth graders, like we had some like go to the flying.
Pre-prepared food is not tax
But they were
exempt.
down the hill.
Oh, okay, okay.
Boys are taking their shirts
But
off.
some of the organizations we work with still give it to us tax-free, and some don't because you have.
It was just fun.
I don't.
Yeah.
So they're assuming that we're gonna.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, it's like there's, you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I made the suggestion of like a basket.
Right.
Like, you were saying it's something like that's not gonna want that, and I was like, okay, but we have inflatables, just a little.
Okay, then we don't, we have no need to use the
They
ones.
get, you know, all the taco, they get an ice cream, they go down the hill,
Yeah.
order fries, you know, and they just order around. I mean,
Yeah, and there are a couple of things you and I can talk about in terms of what abilities that we've used. And the other piece of it is, before COVID, for one of the meal options, either in the fall or the spring, I can't remember which it was, we used to ask families to donate. And we have done that where they donated in kind, or they donated in gift cards, or any of those things, brought in their own food that they made for people, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Okay.
I'll do that too. I think so much. Yeah, I love that. I love the organization. I watched the organization. Bye, ladies. Bye. Thank you. And her presentation at the.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
All the crock pots and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And the other thing we can ask also is, snacky stuffings also. So instead of a potluck, asking for donations for chips and drinks and that kind of thing. So that would be another thing we can look at doing.
Yeah, and I'd be more than happy to send you.
For the 650.
Yeah, okay.
I figured you did.
And then thank the, company. And just other.
Like your email.
Yeah.
You misspelled that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said, you said lights and then space SE. You missed the N.
It's this stupid phone.
I know, you
It doesn't
do it
happen
to
on
all
this
of
phone.
my, when you text me too.
It's so
very
annoying. I
funny.
can't stand it. And I type really fast, and so my brain goes fast, and then you hit space, and then it changes stuff.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for being here, Joanna. We'll talk to you
And
later.
then I hit space, and then I go back, and I'm like, what? Yeah, I saw it. Anyway, it doesn't happen on my iPhone.
Okay. Have you guys heard anything about?
Thank you,
lights in the
Joanna.
school?
No, you'll get an, oh,
You have?
Don't worry.
It is only if it's in your classroom, you will get an email.
Hey,
That
can I
is
tell
all
you?
that, that's the only thing.
I just get itchy, just, well, I'm gonna start.
You don't like allow pets or anything
But, well, so,
Heart.
do you know the Terminator film? You know, I used to like, I remember how ice and everything and whatever, my little girl, and I do not know how, I think she got it at like her music class or something, but my little girl was 2.5 and got ice. And they were like, little kids don't usually get it, right, and nobody knew they had it.
You know,
Sarah? Oh, Be Smart, it's gun safety, so, It's gun safety in the home. It's like locking your guns and like teaching your children about safety with guns, because even if it's not your home, it could be someone else's home. So they're just like neutral, not like anything political or whatever, but just like guns exist
But
in your home and someone else's
be
home.
smart about it.
Let's be smart about it. Yeah, so that was really cool.
Yeah, anytime I have Lindsay like go over to someone else's house, I'm like, hey, this is really awkward, but I'm gonna ask anyways. Do you have any guns in your house?
No, and people that are, I was gonna say smart, people that are like responsible gun owners really appreciate that.
Like, oh, yeah.
Because that's the question.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like, people who are responsible gun owners shouldn't care. I know the NRA is its own thing and all of that, and you're taking the rights away, but if you're truly like a responsible gun owner who owns guns for the reason you're supposed to own guns, you shouldn't give a shit what the regulations are or what the questions are or any of that, because the truth of the matter is you're doing what you're supposed to do. We're not trying to take your guns away. We're not trying to stop you from anything. No, we're trying to take away if you have an AR-15 because you don't need that. But anything else, we're not taking your guns away.
So I used to be a trap shooter, so I used to tell my compete or something. No, almost. I would have probably. And
Do these
are we
back
still- We're still.
Yeah, those
recording.
need to be-
Oh,
I did
edited
all
out
of
here,
them,
Jenny, so I was like,
where I
yeah.
turned the left side of the table back, so pull
I
the,
used to tell my sister.
that,
My
this
brother
side of the
was
table
teaching me,
this way, and then the
okay,
numbers should line up.
Yes, that is how I line up.
I got it.
But that's what they do. But I will say, Jenny, that AR-15 are really fun to shoot.
Oh, I love it. You shot a semi on the head?
You go Las Vegas?
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, well, you can probably go to like Bill's too if you wanted to, and you could rent them and you could shoot them, and then like M6s are the same thing.
Yeah.
So they're the same, so anyway.
I have
Like
shot
that.
heat, but I have not.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I'm gonna take all
Years ago, when we first turned down, we tried like, oh, there was some big festival, and
Oh,
we
is
could pay
this-
them to like drive a tank.
Do you want to get them?
I know. We did,
Oh, drive a tank?
yeah.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Down in the vicinity of Owatonna where there's a
Yeah.
lot of space to
Lots
drive.
of space
tank.
and that sort of thing, and someone who owns a tank.
Yeah.
Do you want these papers back?
No, they can be recycled.
Don't worry about that whole, like, people can come to visit, come to meetings and vote, right?
Mm-hmm.